Bien,
Madam President, dear Ursula, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very pleased, Madam President, to welcome you to Paris together with members of the European Commission. During this first week of the French presidency of the Council of the European Union, for several months now, we've been working jointly in preparing this presidency so that France can take over from our predecessors at the Council, and we're now down to work. Yesterday, with the commissioners, government members, we're able to concretely launch our work with our MPs, and together, European Commission and French presidency, we have the shared will to make this semester a useful moment for Europe of effective, of achievements and projections serving the Europeans and Europeans. I'm very pleased that you came this morning to honor the memory of two leading European figures, Jean Monnet and Simone Weil, at the Pantheon. I won't here rehearse the full program. It would be neither possible nor make much sense, but our resolve is to have over the next few months progress on a number of texts that we've collectively moved forward to have a more decarbonized society and economy. With the climate package during this half, we'll be moving several issues forward. The mechanism at the borders, also all the mechanisms that will accelerate decarbonization of our transport, improved electricity system, lower carbon content in our homes. And during this half, we'll be moving forward our digital agenda with two major directives, DMA, DSA. We're very committed in order to move forward on that, regulate the market and the content, and create a genuine European model. We'll also have a half that's very important in terms of social convergence, social justice for a fairer, more equitable Europe between men and women, a decent wage and pay equality, also in boards of directors of companies, and also a border security agenda defining defense. The next few weeks will be marked by several events: a summit in Brest in February on oceans and our strategy, a summit in Brussels, African Union, European Union. We have this common strategy that we want to recast, this new alliance with the African continent. Huge work done by the Commission. Thank you. From sanitary to economy, mobility to migration. 10th and 11th of March, informal summit in France that will allow us to have a strategic discussion on defense, strategic discussion on our macroeconomic model and on new governance. And at the heart of that, the strategy building the growth and autonomy model for Europe. Many projects we've begun to finance, the strategy we want to share and implement, and this new growth, investment, production autonomy model is a key component for the next decade as well as this half. The Council in March and summits planned in particular on the Balkans question and, of course, the geopolitical situation that will lead us over the next few days and weeks to act together, in particular for European security, the Ukrainian question, several others. In this opening statement, I don't want to be too lengthy, and in December I presented all our focus areas, but at the side of the Commission, together with all members of the European Council and the European Parliament, we are at work in order to make this half a fully useful 6 months and to move forward this shared ambition that we have. That's what I wish to say, Madam President. Thank you once again for your presence, you and your College of Commissioners, for your teams in Paris. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, dear Emmanuel. I'm very pleased to be here together with the College of Commissioners on the occasion of the launch of the French presidency of the Council. France is assuming this fine responsibility in very peculiar circumstances. The health situation due to COVID-19 remains of concern, but we're acting. We're taking strong action on the vaccine front, and that enabled us to reach a vaccination rate of almost 70% of the whole population and close to 80% of adults in Europe. We delivered 1.2 billion vaccines to the Europeans, but in addition, we exported or shared more than 1.5 billion doses to more than 150 countries. In addition, we are massively supporting the economy, including thanks to our stimulus program, Next Generation EU, of 800 billion euros. And this is not leading us to forget the other issues. Like you said, Mr. President, there are some major tensions in our neighborhood, as seen due to the military pressure of Russia on Ukraine and the intimidations vis-à-vis Moldova. So I'm pleased that a country with the political weight and the experience of France is assuming the Council presidency at such a sensitive time, because the voice of France is loud and clear, and France keeps Europe close to its heart. We have some major projects ahead of us. Of course, the first one is concerns the climate. The Commission has made some detailed and ambitious proposals so that in 2030 we achieve our goal of reducing by 55% emissions of greenhouse gases. We want to do it efficiently from an economic point of view, as well as fairly from a social point of view, and I'm aware that it is something very important to you. And Mr. President, we fully share this ambition. We therefore count on the French presidency to advance these proposals. Second, the digital transition. Our joint ambition is to turn Europe into a genuine digital power in the world, shaped according to our own rules and values. We made some ambitious proposals last year. Our legislation on digital markets and services aim at promoting innovation while making sure that the major platforms shoulder their democratic responsibility. I hope and I'm sure that the French presidency will move quickly on these topics, because we know that these are at the heart of the concerns of our European fellows. More generally, we need to continue to strengthen our economic model, like you said, that of an economy which is both competitive and social. We are working on a new European growth model, shaped, of course, by the Green Compact, digital issue, the resilience, and in line with the Next Generation EU. It is based on excellency, sustainability, and European value chains. Here again, I'm very pleased that our priorities are converging. Let me take the example of our initiative aiming at putting together a competitive hydrogen industry to reach the goals of the Green Deal for Europe. Lastly, for this growth model, I would like to mention the proposal made by the Commission some 3 weeks ago on the taxation of multinational companies. The European Union is amongst the very first to deliver this historical reform on the minimum corporate tax rate as agreed within the OECD and at the G20. And I hope we can quickly find an agreement in the context of the French presidency, because indeed this reform is necessary for a fair global growth. And another important topic is the management of our borders and the strengthening of our Schengen area of free movement. A number of crises have been weakening this area, which is nonetheless at the heart of the European project. This is the reason why we want to restore, preserve, and strengthen the opening of the internal borders of the European Union. To that effect, we put forward some reform proposals in December, And I hope that the French presidency will give the necessary impetus to achieve progress on this matter. Of course, this also requires the strengthening of the management of our external borders, the fight against human traffickers, and the work with countries of origin and countries of transit. This is also the reason why I also would like us to achieve some early progress on our pact on migration and asylum, which is also providing a comprehensive approach. Next, we also agree that we need a genuine defense union to prepare us for the next new threats, be it a hybrid attack, no matter where it comes from. So let us quickly agree on our priorities, thanks to our strategic compass, so that we can have some sort of a defense white paper. And I'm very pleased that the French presidency committed to this matter. I'm very much looking forward to the discussion we will have on this topic in the context of the summit on defense matters in March. I believe it is high time for Defense Europe to move up a gear. Lastly, allow me to mention our relations with Africa. Of course, in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic, we need to amplify our support to this continent, both when it comes to vaccines and economic consequences. But well beyond this crisis, of course, Africa is a key partner for the future of our continent, because it is a geopolitical area, an economic and demographic area which will be crucial in the world of tomorrow. I am therefore looking forward to discussing in detail the ways to deepen our partnership on the occasion of the summit we will have in Brussels in February between the EU and Africa. There we go. This is the outline of an ambitious program for the next 6 months. Mr. President, you can rely on the commitment of the Commission. And thank you very much for hosting us.
Madame la Présidente, Monsieur le Président, nous allons prendre les questions 4 en tout.
Madam President, Mr. President, the first question to 24 Ore.
Bonjour Madame, bonjour Monsieur.
Madam President, sir, I have a question for the President. I'd like to return for a moment. The Quirinal Treaty you signed with Italy a few weeks ago in great pomp. I note in the words of the French government, you continue to highlight relations with Germany. I was wondering if this new relationship with Italy is destined to remain one down versus the Franco-German relationship, if the goal isn't simply to continue on very specific one-off goals, such as the Stability Pact on nuclear power. And since I can put a question, I'll put a second question regarding the political uncertainty in Italy. Are you concerned by the possibility of a change of government in Italy? Thank you, sir.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you for that question. I'm not used to commenting on in the habit of commenting on political situations in our neighboring countries. We're very fortunate in having a president of the Republic, council president in Italy, who's so courageous and friends of France. It's really an opportunity for France and for as to the Quirinal Treaty, as we presented a few weeks ago with the President Draghi, it covers a very broad scope indeed. I'm not going to mention them all, but it's very intimate cooperation that Italy and France are building through this treaty, because this friendship between our two countries, and it's the same for all bilateral ties in the EU, is strengthening even further the European project. It removes nothing, it detracts nothing from it. It gives greater intimacy between our societies, our intellectuals. So it's first of its kind, it's a major milestone, and it embodies and consolidates the strength of our friendship and ties. This approach is neither one of substitution or comparison, might I say, but friendship between France and Germany. That's always how I viewed things. you know our relations. I don't want to enter what might be here more of a thesis of psychoanalysis on the triangle of desire. But when we look at one another at three, there's always something that's complicated. And I like to keep things simple. Our friendship with Germany detracts nothing from our friendship with Italy and vice versa. And the more we can operate at three for Europe, the more we will do useful things. So we will multiply initiatives with Italy. We'll also multiply initiatives each and every time it's possible with three. You mentioned the piece that I signed with Mario Draghi. We proposed it, we discussed it with Chancellor Scholz. A real discussion. All that is done in intelligence and friendship. So for me, this relationship is built next to and in symbiosis with our friendship with Germany. But I think we have a great many things to do in Franco-Italian, Italian-French, and together as Europeans.
Rivet de l'AFP.
Question Jérôme Rivet, AFP.
You made the statement of Europe, one of your priorities, affirming the power of Europe for the coming months. How do you plan to obtain concrete results during this half, and starting with the crisis in Kazakhstan, where power is receiving the armed support of Russia in authorizing the police to fire without warning on demonstrators? Would you like to begin by answering?
Oui. Peut-être un commentaire sur la situation au Kazakhstan.
Maybe a few words about the situation in Kazakhstan. We are monitoring the situation in Kazakhstan with a lot of concerns. The rights and the security of the citizens are of the utmost importance and shall be protected. And I'm launching a call for the end to violence. And the European Union stands ready to offer its assistance where it can.
I fully share the view of Madam President. We're both concerned, very vigilant. We've called for de-escalation. We're also very mobilized in this context, profoundly new context, to be active. But I have nothing to add to what Madam President said. On the power and the concrete agenda, during this half, we're going to complete the strategic compass for shared defense in Europe. We'll have a discussion at the informal summit in March. We'll conclude it at the March summit. We'll have a common position in Europe to act more coordinated. Secondly, we have an approach in terms of industry, of common projects that will continue to move forward. That'll also be the subject of the informal summit in March. That is to say, build the underpinnings of this strategic autonomy, the possibility of have a stronger European defense and stronger technological autonomy, and that's an absolutely key point for the reality of this. Third point, we're going to continue to move forward concretely on a culture of common intervention, continued intervention culture that we've launched, that will be developed over the coming months with several operations that will form part of that method. Fourthly, we will jointly propose also our vision of a European security architecture. We're already doing it by situation. The case of Ukraine, for example, it's the Normandy format, and with Chancellor Scholz, we proposed holding a further meeting in the coming weeks, as we just mentioned, but we see the geopolitical situation in the region requires that Europe, the EU, must propose its vision, act, and to get round the table with all the stakeholders to move forward on this issue. Those are some of the focus areas on the points you mentioned.
Hasse de DPA.
Madame la Présidente.
Madam President, Mr. President, the EU is currently excluded from discussions with Russia regarding a possible new European security architecture. Retrospectively, was it a mistake not to organize a summit with Mr. Putin as proposed by Madame Merkel a few months back, and what can the EU do to change that situation? And also another question for the President. Are you still prepared to talk to Mr. Putin about a moratorium on medium-range missiles? Thank you.
Une chose est claire.
I believe that one thing is clear. No solution without Europe. No matter the solution, it will have to go through Europe. And the European Union is very present when it comes, for example, to the support to Ukraine. I visited Ukraine in October. We're providing some financial support with 6 billion euros. So we are indispensable in terms of energy security in Ukraine. The European Union also imposed sanctions on Russia for its aggression. So all of these are facts regarding this situation. And like you said, Mr. President, we have the Normandy format with France and Germany. And of course, the Euro countries are the majority in NATO, which is crucial as well in this dialogue. But for me, it is important that we also consider, together with you, Mr. President, in the context of your presidency, this idea of architecture of European security. We will provide a vision, we will put our architecture on the table, we will work on it, design it together. So once again, there will be no solution but with Europe on this matter.
On the issues you raised, first, I think it's a good thing that there are discussions between Russia and the United States of America on tensions that exist around the Ukrainian situation and more broadly. So I welcome that. I think the discussion is important. I note for all that, and I welcome that too, that coordination between Europeans and Americans is exemplary on the matter, because together with President Biden, we had several discussions before and after discussions with President Putin. If exchanges concern Ukraine or other bilateral issues, they in no way address the European security architecture, which is first and foremost a matter for Europeans. It's down to us to propose the European security architecture that we want. I mentioned it back at the NATO summit in 2019. We must build it as Europeans to share it with our allies in NATO and to share it with our neighborhood, because we are a geopolitical power. So I think that it's obviously like that things are happening and will continue to happen like that. Madam President recalled the commitment of the EU in respect of Ukraine. I won't return. With Chancellor Merkel back then, we proposed a re-engagement of a defining dialogue with Russia. France began it in the spring of 2019 with several initiatives. We're continuing that. That's why France will continue to exchange with Russia. I myself had 2 lengthy telephone conversations with President Putin these past few weeks, and I'll have further conversations over the coming days. The EU must dialogue with Russia. Dialogue doesn't mean concede. Dialogue means to review, take stock of our disagreements, but try and build the future. We have sanctions that exist owing to the Ukrainian crisis and the invasion of 2014 that are maintained, but we need a dialogue with Russia that, through its geography and history, is a key player for this European security architecture that we must build. So I continue to plead for this dialogue, frank, exacting, coordinated, because member states of the EU don't have the same history in respect of Russia, nor the same geography or the same concerns. And that's why also I spent a great deal of time on my side through the bilateral trips to all my colleagues to understand this history, these concerns, and to factor them in. The European security architecture must factor in all these histories and requirements. I remain prepared as part of this effort and this approach to integrate, of course, all military matters and arms control in Europe, be it medium-range missiles, intermediate-range missiles, nuclear capabilities, all that must be taken into account. Through a US unilateral decision, we're no longer covered by the INF Treaty, which is a concern for many states, notably in Central Eastern Europe. We can't remain in that situation. It's our responsibility. We'll do that all together.
La question est posée par Mathieu Couache de BFM TV.
One more question from BFM TV. Good morning, Madam President. Mr. President, you said that those against vaccines were irresponsible people and therefore no longer a citizen. Could you please clarify this concept, which is not clear for many people, including within the government? Then you said you wanted to make life difficult, to put it politely, to those who refuse to get vaccinated. Is it something, an opinion that you share with the President of the Commission and with your European partners? It is a genuine question, and are you working with the Europeans on that?
On your first question, first of all, let me reassure you, the government, whom I saw on Wednesday, fully understands what the President says. More seriously, on the first point you mentioned, I repeated it during my New Year's greetings. To be a citizen means having rights and duties. Firstly, duties, and I had occasion to say this several times. The concept of freedom that's brandished by some of our fellow citizens, I'm free not to be vaccinated, stops where the freedom of the other is hindered, where the life of someone else can be threatened. You have to realize that these are not declarations. It's in a 2-hour interview with 8 of our compatriots that one of your colleagues had selected. All the people I spoke to were indignant at the idea of our fellow citizens who don't want to be vaccinated. I had 2 caregivers who were saying, we think we should no longer treat people who are not vaccinated who come to emergency care. I saw medicine, doctors, people, we don't want to treat people who arrive at A&E who are not vaccinated. Of course, okay, we can perhaps state things in familiar ways, I assume that. But the real fracture, the divide lies there, where some make their freedom becomes a slogan, their irresponsibility. Not only they threaten other people's lives, but they restrict other people's freedoms. And that I cannot accept, and I can't allow to prosper in our country debates. Let's not treat them through those choices. And I also said that clearly. So what I'm saying is to be a citizen means accepting the duties that go with that citizenship. And so when one's a citizen, one must accept fulfilling one's duty. And then, yes, I fully assume, and that's what we've been doing since last summer, we have a strategy that is simple: vaccinate, vaccinate, vaccinate. It's European, and I recalled it on several occasions. Fortunately, we have Europe from the outset to obtain those doses. First production continent open for the whole world because we've more exported doses than we kept for ourselves. Vaccination is our priority. Next, second pillar is the health pass becoming a vaccination passport. It's a mechanism, protects people when we're in a common space, a strategy adopted throughout Europe with different technical arrangements protecting others. When we go to a restaurant, to a show, in the same room, well, my status is known and we move forward. I have to say that the vaccine passport is based on initiatives taken before us by Luxembourg, Germany, or others. We had a health pass to be vaccinated or tested in meeting places. Several of our neighbors had 2G or 2G plus before we arrived at that decision where you need to be cured or fully vaccinated. It's a fully European movement which does what? Which applies restrictions on people who are not vaccinated. And so that movement, you see it throughout Europe. Some vaccination obligation above a certain age, but most countries put social constraints. If you're not vaccinated, you can't access this place or activity. And we are compelled to do that, to encourage, to push people to do it. And I'm saying this with a great deal of resolve and strength. We must do this. We must do it for all our fellow citizens who are making the effort of being vaccinated and through the irresponsibility of a few others are contaminated. And we must do it also for our fellow citizens who sometimes are taken in by obscurantist discourses of fear, who don't protect themselves, whereas science, research, and the technical excellence in Europe allows them that. So it was my responsibility, I believe, to sound the alarm, and that's what I did this week, so that things can move forward even more swiftly.
Une discussion très importante qu'on a maintenant.
There is currently a very important debate ongoing. What does freedom mean? Well, freedom is always combined with responsibility, and not just responsibility towards myself, but also responsibility vis-à-vis on those close, my family, my neighbors, others, and I believe that both work hand in hand, and this is the current discussion. And the government is also in charge of protecting. That means that the vaccination pass is a form of protection. Those who are vaccinated, and like the President said, of course, it is a tool which a government can use. I believe that this debate on responsibility and freedom is very important in our society in the context of a pandemic. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Je vous rends au Premier ministre et au gouvernement.
Oui.